Hello everybody, today I just wanted to give you some tips to improve your Paragon boards. So first off, I'm going to go over a leveling one, and then secondly, I will go over a min-max one. So let's hop on into it. So first one's going to be a leveling tip, and that's going to be to focus on defense and then focus on getting your glyphs that matter the most. So for me, for example, that's going to be wilds. This is going to increase the passive portion of my companion damage by 130%. So the first thing I'm thinking about is, okay, what board allows me to get this even at level 1? Because you'll see here, you're a lot more constricted in what you can get when your glyph level is only level 1. Whereas if you go up to level 21, it becomes a lot bigger, right? Or once you get to level 15, it'll become a lot bigger. So you want to be thinking about that, going forward, because you want to hit your 70% max resists whenever you're leveling up, just to try to make sure you can keep pushing to higher tiers. And you also want to make sure that you have your armor, but your armor is typically going to be got through gear, so that's not one you're typically going to have to care about a whole lot. But there might be some classes that might. Okay, so that's gonna be the first one. Is really just focus on your defense, focus your pathing on going to all resistance, stuff like that, and then focusing on getting to whatever your first main glyph is. It's going to increase your damage by the most. Not every class has something as impactful as wilds, but yeah. So the next tip is going to be utilize niche glyphs to help shore up things that normal stats would cover later on. So if I'm early on in the game, using shapeshifter is pretty good because it gives my skills a 25% chance to critically strike, or my shapeshifting skills. I need these to crit in order to proc pack leader. So if I need those to crit in order to proc pack leader, but I don't have crit chance on my rings yet because I'm level 50 or something and I just had bad luck or rolls, this is going to help shore that up. So don't be afraid to think outside the box and to use niche glyphs to help shore up your defenses. Okay. The next tip, I'm going to go over to the min-max stuff here now, or I guess more like the level 100 stuff, is don't max out each glyph unless you have some type of combo with it. So what I mean by that is if you look at something like Undaunted, right, it just gives you more damage while fortified, right? But so it's not really that important. Later on, you're going to have so much additive damage, it's going to reduce the effectiveness of this. But if you look at something like Spirit, for example, this gives 194% critical strike damage. Well, I have a class feature here that's going to multiply that by 30%. Rogues have a unique bow that's going to multiply that by 60%. So I get a lot more value out of maxing this out than I would before. So instead of trying to max out every little thing, instead just try to path to get something else. Because what if I just decided to not max it out, but then I was able to go and get a damage reduction node or an armor node, or even this right here, right? So it's you can get 30% damage if you can make it to this rare node, over gaining an extra 10 or an extra 20% damage by putting 4 or 5 points into that. Obviously it's all going to depend on what your build path is, but just be very careful about just kind of mindlessly maxing those out, because you could just be missing out on damage in other places. The next one is going to be utilize the percent bonus to rare node glyphs on defense instead of offense. Most classes don't really have anything that's really all that useful to boost like that. If you can get a boost with it, that's cool, but you want to focus on doing something like this. So I have Keeper right here, and it's giving me an extra 10% max life. That's massive because max life is multiplicative. That's going to be better, and I care a lot more about that than Nature's Will. The reason why I have Nature's Will is because, obviously I can get 7 intelligence. And also keep in mind that it can also be worth it to take the one over here if you have nothing else to do, because if I want to take, 5 willpower here, but I could get 10 willpower here or whatever from increasing the bonus to all rare nodes. Right? It says I'm getting 25 extra willpower out of this. So that means I'm getting 10 extra willpower a piece here. Yeah, or 13 a piece. Something like that roughly. So that's pretty darn solid, right? So that's going to be better than just taking a one-off willpower over here if you have an extra point, even though you don't use necessarily whatever that damage is. So keep that in mind. But that's kind of really getting into the minutia. But then you can see over here I use a 125% one to increase my damage reduction from vulnerable enemies by 10%. On top of that, I'm also getting the secondary bonus here, so this is a pretty massive defense boost here, right? So that's going to be pretty solid as well. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing those to really boost your defenses. Now, obviously, some classes might not have as many choices as Druid does to do that, but the idea here is, that you at least try to do that, because defenses are going to be extremely important. Okay. So after that, pay attention. Okay, so now this one is another one that is, it's getting into the minutia again, but it does matter. So pay attention to how many points it's taking you to get to a glyph slot. Because if you have all your main glyphs, right, like you have Keeper, you have Poise, you have like Wilds and Spirit, right? And now you're just trying to think, okay, well, what do I do with the rest of my points now that I have all the most impactful glyphs? That doesn't necessarily mean you need to path to a glyph. So if I have, let's say from where I'm at right here, I have like the option of taking 20 points to get to a glyph socket, or I have the option of taking 20 points and instead I'm able to make it to 2 different rare clusters here and here, right? So I could take getting an extra, like, what's this? So what was that 12, 14, 16, like 18% max life? Or actually, sorry, no, that's just 14%. So an extra 14% max life, and then an extra, what's that, 8, 10, 12, 14, and an extra 14% damage reduction while fortified. That's probably going to be more worth it than me pathing up here, trying to get Undaunted and going 10% damage reduction while fortified, and then like 50% additive damage. Like, this is going to be probably far more worth than going to try to get that extra additive damage and then losing all that defense, right? So make sure that you are thinking about that whenever you're thinking about your glyphs. You don't have to always maximize how many glyphs you have. You just want to get the ones that are the best, and then it just becomes kind of a math equation of stats and stuff like that. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it. Those have been a few tips to help you guys improve your Paragon boards. Hopefully that was helpful. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.